You're listening to the Author Stories Podcast, bringing you the story behind the stories and the storytellers.
Margaret White,
Terry Brooks,
Sheena Kamal,
Matthew Quick,
JT Ellison,
Walt D. Williams,
Brad Ford,
Corey, Dr. O,
Brandon Sanderson,
Robin Mott,
Ernest Klein, Jim Butcher,
Sherwin Harris.
Visit hankgarner.com for archives of all the shows. Today's guest is... Well, thanks for joining me again for the Author Stories Podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. Today, I am super excited to have David Bell back on the show with me today to talk about his brand new book called The Request. And this is one of the best books I've read this year. If you are looking for a summer reading thrill, this is the book that you've got to have. Welcome back to the show, David.
Hey, thank you. You know, you're saying all these nice things. I don't have to say anything.
That's
out of the way.
I'll just kind of go over, that this is one of my favorite books of the year. You can just be quiet. I'll tell everybody they ought to buy it, and then we'll just hang up. How's that?
Okay, that would be great. That would make my life easier. Yes. But thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to have you. We talked last year, and I loved the book that you had out last year. It was it was one of those books that made me think, a lot when it was over. And I think that's the hallmark of a great book, that when you close the back cover, you're still the characters are still in your head. Do you remember what the first book was that you read that kind of, told you that books could transport you and transform you like that?
Yeah, I can think of a couple when I was a kid that I read. One was there was a kid's version of King Arthur and his Knights. And it was, like the old, Sir Thomas Malory King Arthur, but it was adapted for young people.
Right.
By a woman named Mabel Louise Robinson. And I remember reading that when I was in, fourth grade, third grade, something like that. And I mean, first of all, I believed that I was reading nonfiction. I just thought, like, these people really existed at one time. And there was really a lady in the lake, and there was really a holy grail, and all this stuff really happened. But I just had to read that book over and over again, because the story was so amazing. The characters were so vivid. And that's probably one of the big things that set me on this path in life of reading and writing.
Are you telling me that that's not a real book?
Well, I don't want to. The truth is, how do we know? How do we know what was happening? But I got older, and then, you would see these History Channel documentaries where they would say, like, was King Arthur a real person? Well, the search for the real King Arthur. And I was like, don't tell me that. Just let me believe that it really happened and there really was a lady in the lake, and I'll be fine.
David, I believe there are two kinds of people in the world. There are storytellers, and then there are the people that want to pop the rest of our balloons and take the joy out of everything.
Yeah, there are some people who are just very literal minded about that. I remember, now my dad loved to read. So my dad loved to read, but I remember when I was a kid seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark with him.
Yeah.
And so, I was like 10 years old, and we saw Raiders of the Lost Ark. And of course, I just thought it was the most amazing thing. And then afterward, my dad was like, well, I can't believe he got on a submarine and did and it's like, I was just thinking, like, no, Dad, don't say that. Don't give me logic. I just want to believe that Indiana Jones could jump on a submarine and it would go under the ocean and he'd be fine. And yeah.
Are you still running the MFA program?
Yeah. Yeah. I am.
Do you, when you have a new batch of students, and by the time they get to that level of the MFA program, they pretty much have their minds made up, and they have been bitten by the bug. But is there a piece of advice or anything that you give new students that might help sway them, that to convince them that they can have a creative life?
Well, I mean, I hope one thing that I hope they see is that I'm an example that you can, that they can have a professor who has done this. And so, and I try to say to them that I don't really think it's about talent so much. I think a lot of young writers, and maybe it's just when we grow up, we think that people just are either born with something or they're not born with something. You're either born Michael Jordan or you're not, right? Or whatever,
Right.
And I don't really think that's true. I mean, I think people who succeed as writers, I think they have to have some talent, some ability to, you have to be able to write a sentence, you have to have something to say. But a lot of it is about working at it and being persistent and persisting through rejection, and difficulties and all that. So that maybe is the thing that I want my students to understand, is that it's not like, oh, you just walk into a classroom and someone says, this is the person who has the magic ability, right? Like King Arthur, right? It's not like anyone's like, oh, you're the magic chosen one. You have to figure out if you want to do it, and you have to figure out if you want to take the time to do it. And if you want to persist at doing it long after any sane person might have stopped. So, I mean, that to me would be the big thing I would try to convey to students.
So are you telling me that at 5.5 feet tall, if I would have just worked on my slam dunk more when I was 13, I could be Michael Jordan?
Well, let's not get carried away. There
I
are
know what
some
you're saying.
things where the great thing about writing, and I do tell my students this, I say, think about these professional, like the gymnasts, who go to the Olympics, or professional tennis players or something like that, where, you'll hear every year at the Olympics, they'll be like, well, she's a little old to be a gymnast. She's 19. And I'm thinking, like, 19 and she's too old to be doing something, And I always say writing is not like that. You don't have to retire as a writer when you're 30 or 40. You can just keep going. You don't have to be in great physical shape. All you have to do is sit. So yeah, it's a little different than playing in the NBA.
When you wrote your first book that you published, Cemetery Girl, there's a thread amongst all of the works that you've published, this sort of psychological thriller element, this mystery, the idea that that people can do things that they don't think they can do, and what is it about mysteries, thrillers, the sort of psychological suspense? What is it about those kinds of stories that intrigue you so much?
I don't really know. I mean, I've always, even as a kid, I was always interested in crime stories and mystery stories and weird news stories. My mom liked to watch, well, both of my parents liked to watch mystery and crime stories. My mom especially was always, watching, like, if 2020 or something like that had on some, weird murder or disappearance, she was always watching that. So I don't know why I was always fascinated by that stuff from an early age. I was always, when the news was on and there would be I grew up in the city in Cincinnati, so there was a fair amount of crime. There would be murders and there would be shootings and there would be bank robberies and things like that. So, I was always interested in that, and of course it scared me too. I would watch these weird news stories about a murder or something or a disappearance, and then I'd be terrified and I'd be sleeping with all the lights on. But then the next day I'd be back watching more of it. So I don't know what it is why I was interested in one thing and not the other, why I wasn't watching, stories about unicorns or rainbows or things like that. It was just, we're kind of hardwired to be drawn to certain types of stories, I think.
Yeah.
Noveler is the best way to write a novel. Why? Quite simply because we've made it the easiest place to do it. Writing a novel is hard enough. Noveler takes care of all the logistical bits of writing a novel, just leaving that small matter of the words to you. It's a clean, beautiful writing interface with writing analytics, goals and streaks, advanced grammar checking, version control, day, evening, and night modes, and many other features designed to take all the stress out of writing. Tell us what you need and we'll build it. Together, we'll build a better tool. With a design-led approach, all the right tools that you need, Noveler saves all your words constantly, allows you to manage and order your novel easily. It's accessible from any device, desktop or mobile. It syncs to Google Drive and Dropbox. It allows exports in various formats, including ebook and more. It also has nice touches like allowing you to write both offline and online, unique for a web-based platform. Everyone needs help with their writing, from inspiration through to grammar checking, so we're doing our best to provide that support. We integrate that support directly into Noveler. Our advanced grammar checker powered by Pro Writing Aid does everything from spell check to style advice. Our writing courses include the incredible Tim Clare's Couch to ADK. We're really excited to offer all Author Stories listeners 30% off Noveler for a whole year. And it doesn't matter if you choose to sign up for the monthly or annual plan. You'll get 30% off. All you need to do is use the discount code HANK when you sign up. Noveler, Novlr. That's noveler.org.
I'm like that. I read a lot. I write a lot. I watch TV with my family. We live out in the country. I'm really a boring person. But I love these types of books. I love when we kind of peel the layers back on polite life and see what's underneath, what is just beyond the reach of probably every person. It's just that these stories let us go that one step further and think about things that our neighbors may be doing, that what we could possibly do if given the correct circumstances. This is a really hot genre right now, and I think a lot of us are thinking like you do, that this helps us to explore things that maybe we wouldn't get to explore. Is that part of it, that we get to kind of live dangerously in the comfort of our nice, comfy reading chair at home?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, it's I always liken it to, when people ride roller coasters, which I don't do. But I mean, people ride roller coasters because they want the thrill of, I'm on this fast moving vehicle that feels like it's going to go out of control. But I know there's a very small chance that something's going to go wrong on this roller coaster, right?
Right.
And it's the same kind of thing that I think we're all very aware. Anyone who thinks at all is very aware that there really is it's a very thin line between our lives being orderly and in control and our lives just being completely out of control. I mean, if anything, circumstances in the world recently have shown that, that like out of the blue, something can happen. Someone can get sick, someone can be in an accident, someone can be the victim of crime, whatever. And just like the fabric of your life goes away. And so I think these books are a way for people to engage with that, to say, I'm watching it happen to someone else, right? I'm watching, and you read a book like that and you think, well, thank God it's not me, right? Thank God I'm not the one who's the victim of the crime. I'm not the one whose family member has disappeared. But you get that vicarious experience of seeing it. And so in a way, it's kind of a reminder of how tenuous everything is without having to directly experience it.
I remember your book that came out last year, The Layover. I read an advanced reader's copy of that before it came out. We talked. And then after that, we went on a road trip, and I I believe I got the audiobook from Audible, because I enjoyed that book so much and thought it would be, kind of an easy listen while we traveled. And I'll tell you, I just completely got engrossed in that story all over again. I knew what was going to happen,
Right.
but it just absorbed me. This idea of strangers passing, and then when you start thinking about the randomness of everyone's life, anyone connecting is the chances are that none of us will connect when you start really looking at all the randomness of life. But then, the way this story unfolds, do you love just taking, seemingly mundane topics and thinking about how weird they can get if you if you start peeling the layers back? Like where does a story like that begin for you?
Yeah, I think it is that. I mean, I think there are so many great mystery stories and crime stories being written, and there are different variations on them, right? So
Sure.
there are stories where it's like, FBI profilers are trying to find a serial killer who's doing all this weird stuff, or like the TV show Mindhunter, which I love, where it's like you've got these really bizarre people doing really bizarre things, and the detective or whoever is trying to figure it out, and that's one version of it. But then, like the kind of story I write, and I'm not saying it's better, I'm just saying it's different, is saying, okay, you're not necessarily going to have like the weird serial killer in it or even the super cop or anybody like that, but you're just going to have regular people.
Right.
And what happens if a regular person is forced into some bizarre circumstance that they may not be prepared for? I mean, I think we all kind of think about that. Again, to go back to, you see a news story about something weird happening or whatever, and then you kind of think, well, what would I do if I was in that situation? If I was in pursuit of a killer, or if a killer was in pursuit of me, how would I handle it? Because I'm not James Bond, right? I'm not trained in the martial arts, and I don't have little gadgets, and I might not even have a weapon or whatever. How would I do if just an ordinary person was forced to be in a life or death situation like that? And so that's kind of what's going on with my books is, what if you have just regular people who are flawed but trying to do their best, and then they're forced into a situation that spirals out of their control, and they have to see how they handle it? Can they be physically courageous, morally courageous, whatever the case may be?
Your new book, The Request, takes that idea and really puts it to the test. Because um, uh, where Layover really explored the randomness of life and how it's maybe not as random as we think. The Request takes a different tack. It explores friendship and how those relationships can be complicated and intricate, and really puts that to the test. When you're looking back on a finished book, it's very easy to see themes emerge and maybe topics that are really explored. Do those things, are you thinking about those things when you write the book, or are they things that emerge during the writing? Maybe things that you've been thinking about, or, wrestling with, or whatever in real life, and they just come out in the writing, or is it more intentional with you?
Well, I think it's always a little of both. Before, I make an outline before I write, and I spend a lot of time going over the outline. So I think I know what the story is going to be about, and I kind of think I know what I'm going to be talking about. But it does always happen that as the book goes along, I start to realize, oh, I see, there's this other element emerging there that I didn't see, but now I see it, and that can be useful in the book. Or even, what is always most interesting to me is when the book is out. This happens a lot when I talk to book clubs and things like that. So you'll sit with a group of readers who are really smart and they've read the book, and they start, picking out all these things and saying like, oh, it was so nice the way this happened and the way this went together and the way that went together. And it may not be stuff that I've thought of that consciously, but it's there somehow, and then readers see it and put it together. So I think that discovery, that subconscious part of it that emerges in writing is very important. I think writers have to be open to letting that kind of thing happen, because you have no idea what's going to develop and pop up in the course of writing.
World Anvil is a browser-based world-building platform designed for all world builders, writers and novelists, dungeon masters, game developers, and everyone else. World Anvil keeps your world setting safe and organized, helps you find your characters, locations, plots, timelines, and maps quickly and easily as you write. Then, if you choose, you can showcase your amazing world building to the world, beautifully and interactively, to keep your readers engaged. You can even use our professional tier to build your career selling access to behind-the-scenes content your readers will love and growing your community. Build your world setting in any genre with over 25 custom-built world-building templates, complete with prompts to inspire your creativity. Allow your readers to explore the public parts of your world in an innovative new way with interactive maps, timelines, and wiki-style articles. Give special access to co-authors, beta readers, customers, or patrons to see exclusive behind-the-scenes content. There's a free version to get started with all of the major features. Guild membership offers you a host of extra options, including comprehensive privacy settings, co-authors, presentation options, and so much more. Join our community of over 800,000 world builders, including professional authors. Take part in competitions and learn more about world building at this fantastic online community. Use the coupon code HANK to get 20% off all 6 and 12-month subscriptions. WorldAnvil.com. I'm a recent convert, and I know you will be too.
You mentioned that you are a very dedicated outliner. You lay out the book ahead of time, go through the twists and turns, and have a good idea of what you're doing before you start the writing. I have some friends who are hardcore outliners, some that are hardcore pantsers, and inevitably in the writing, characters will kind of do what they want to do, or maybe there'll be twists and turns, and you alluded to it a minute ago that sometimes something different will happen, and you have to decide what to do with that. Some friends that I have that are hardcore outliners will say, "No, that's a distraction. I'll write that down. Maybe that'll be something good for another book, but that's a distraction from what I've already planned for this book." Some people will say, "Well, that's my subconscious talking, and I need to follow this trail, and it'll alter my outline some, but I can still kind of maintain the structure that I thought of." Where do you fall in that when your subconscious starts speaking to you inside the outline? How do you handle that?
I mean, I'm always open to it. I mean, I would bet that every book I've written, even though it had a pretty detailed outline, that something pretty big came up in the writing of the book that I did not plan for. It could be an entire character who I didn't know was going to be in the book, and all of a sudden they're in the book. Or it could be a character who I didn't know the character was going to play such a big role in the book, but all of a sudden there they are, and they're doing, I see the opportunity for them to do something that I didn't realize they were going to do. And I think being open to that leads to good stuff. I mean, obviously, if it's some crazy whacked out thing that does not fit the book that that you're currently writing, you have to be able to make that decision. And sometimes there may be, sometimes a writer may go down a road and realize, oh, this is a dead end. I got to get the heck out of here, right? But I think in general, I feel open to that, because my thinking is if I discover something as I'm writing that surprises me, or if a character behaves in a surprising way to me, then I'm hoping that then the reader will be surprised too, that when the reader reads the book, they'll be like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I thought I knew what was going to happen, but then this happened, because I felt the same way when I wrote it.
Tell us about Ryan Francis. Where did he come from, and uh, kind of set up his story for us, if you would.
Yeah, Ryan is like I said before, he's a pretty regular guy. He's married, he's happily married, and he has a newborn baby, a baby about 6 months old. And he has a good job. And really, most everything in his life on the surface is going very well. He's got, he has a family and he has a good job, and life is going well. And he likes to share his life a lot on social media. So anybody who sees his life from the outside thinks, this guy's got everything going on. He knows how to pick the right Instagram filter so that his baby looks like the Christ child bathed in glowing lights, in the morning or whatever. But like a lot of people too, there's a side of him that people don't know, and he has a secret from his past that he has managed to keep hidden for many years. Even his wife doesn't know about it. The only person who knows this secret is his best friend from college, Blake. And Blake is one of those guys. We all have those friends. We have those friends when we're young who are a lot of fun, and they're kind of dangerous, and it's fun to be around them because you don't know what's going to happen. But when you get older, you don't want people like that around anymore because you've grown up, and those people are bad news. Well, so Blake is that guy. And so at the beginning of the book, Blake comes back into Ryan's life a little bit and starts to stir up trouble. And it threatens all that stuff that looks so good on the surface of Ryan's life. It threatens that all of that will fall apart.
Social media plays a big role in the book, and it's a great tool for writers nowadays because this is something that Hemingway didn't have at his disposal. Was this great character building tool that we have now? How did social media play into the writing of this, and was this something you were thinking about a lot beforehand, that this would play such a role as it does?
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I think it's just because everybody seems to have this love-hate relationship with the role that social media plays in our lives. Right. Everybody, almost everybody, is on social media in some way, shape, or form. Many people are. And everybody complains about it. It seems like everybody's unhappy with certain aspects of it.
But everybody does it.
But we still do it, right? Why are we all doing this thing that we all think is terrible and that is voluntary? It's not like we're all saying, gosh, I hate paying taxes. Well, you have to pay taxes, right? You're going to go to jail. No one's making you be on social media, right? So I was thinking of that, like that love-hate relationship that we have with this thing. And like you pointed out, it's so weird to think about, but 15 years ago, which is not that much time, we weren't dealing with this. Like 15 years ago, this wasn't an issue in our lives, right? And now it's consumed our lives and our politics and everything. So it's there, and I'm sure, like anybody else, I've thought about many times the way that I think we all probably do this to some extent. We cater what we put on social media to create the best impression of ourselves, and that's not reality. It's not real what we're putting there. We're only putting up usually the best part of ourselves, And so what could be underneath that? Just like you were saying at the beginning, there's this notion of, you look at the nice suburban street and you think, oh, nice yards and nice houses and everybody's happy. But who knows what's going on behind those four walls of those houses, right? Same thing on social media. That's just the new suburban street. And you think to yourself, but what's really going on behind the perfect Instagram filter? What's really going on behind this person who's always eating the perfect taco and taking a picture of it, right? There's got to be, there's more to that person than that. And so that's kind of where that came in with the book, is that, Ryan has this perfect life, but there's stuff that he has hidden from everybody close to him.
When you start peeling back the layers of the story and outlining it, and it all starts coming together, do you ever get that feeling when you're writing a new book of that kind of giddy excitement that you did when you first started reading? Like, oh my God, this is really coming together. And does it ever surprise you still where a story goes to and kind of the ultimate culmination?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, writing a novel, as anybody who's written a novel knows that. So it's this weird thing because it's taking place over many, many days, whether it's 90 days, 100 days, however many days someone is writing this book. And there are good days and there are bad days. There are days when I think a writer sits down and feels like, oh man, this is a breeze. I could write 10,000 words today and everything's just going perfectly. And then there are days where I think writers sit down, and I feel this way, where we sit down and it feels like, I don't even know if I could type my name today, right? I don't even know if I could type the weather, today. So those days when everything feels really good and the cylinders are all firing and things are just humming along, yeah, those are the best days. And I would say you said earlier, what advice would I give to my students or to anybody who is trying to write? I mean, the thing I've had to think about and understand is the only thing that a writer has control over is sitting down and doing the writing. A writer has no control over if it's going to get published, if it's going to get reviewed, if it's going to sell, if people are going to like it, if people are going to not like it, if you're going to get a movie offer. You have no control over many, many of those other things. But if you like the process of sitting down and creating the story, then enjoy that, because that's the thing, that's the choice you have. That's the thing you have control over.
You made a very good point, David, where some days you sit down and, you would have to cap yourself to not write 10,000 words because they're just flowing and it's just coming out, and, the world be damned. You're going to write and it's just amazing. And then other days it feels like you can't even write your name. What advice do you give to people when you are having those rough days where you don't feel creative, you don't, you feel like an imposter, like everyone deals with imposter syndrome at some point. How, as a professional writer, do you put those feelings aside and say, I'm going to have to write today, even if I don't feel like it?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is it's not the end of the world if you have a bad day, right?
Yeah.
That in any job, I mean, every job that people do, people have bad days. You go in some days and you're like, I don't want to do this today, right? I don't feel like it. Or you just go in and you botch the job that day. Hopefully you're not, like a brain surgeon or, you're not working at NASA, but everybody has a bad day. So that's not the be all end all, and one bad day doesn't define you forever. I think and sometimes I think it's okay to say, okay, today it's not there. I'm going to do something else today. I'm gonna read instead, or I'm gonna walk around the block, or I'm gonna go to the beach, or whatever you're gonna do. The only catch to that is you really do have to make sure you come back the next day, because some people I think will say like, well, it's not happening today, I'm going to take a little break. And then 5 years go by. So I think you can cut yourself a break and say it's okay. You don't have to be every day doesn't have to be magic. But just make sure you do the part that you do come back at some point and return to it. If it's important enough to you, you will.
And David, we are very thankful that you return to it over and over and over again. The request, the new book. This book left me speechless, and I am recommending it to everyone. There's a copy on my shelf already, and I'm sure I'll get the audiobook later this summer and enjoy that as well. If people are just discovering you, David, and want to dig into all the great stuff that you do, where can they find you online?
Yeah, my website is davidbellnovels.com, and I'm on social media, David Bell Novels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads. You can find me there, and I'd love to hear from people.
Excellent. We'll put links to all those in the show notes. David, this has been so much fun catching up as always. Thank you for taking time to come back on the show.
Thank you, Hank. It's great to talk to you.
Want to grow as a writer and take your writing to the next level? Give Pro Writing Aid a try. Pro Writing Aid is a grammar checker, style editor, and writing mentor in one package. Pro Writing Aid will never replace a human editor. Rather, it helps you self-edit to a deeper level so that when you send it off to an editor, they will be able to focus on the meat of your writing and not spend their time fixing basic writing issues. Pro Writing Aid is the only platform that offers world-class grammar and style checking, combined with more in-depth reports to help you strengthen your writing. Our unique combination of suggestions, articles, videos, and quizzes makes writing fun and interactive. Writing can be grammatically perfect but still feel awkward and clumsy. Pro Writing Aid searches out elements like repetitiveness, vague wording, sentence length variation, over-dependence on adverbs, passive voice, overcomplicated sentence structures, and so much more. Nothing makes a writer lose credibility faster than spelling and grammar mistakes. Submit clean, error-free writing. Go to ProWritingAid.com and use code HANK20 for 20% off of Pro Writing Aid Premium. Pro Writing Aid. Check it out today.